Hello there. Today on the podcast, I have a special treat for you. So, I wanted to introduce you all know my love of children's books, and I wanted to introduce you to a book that my parents got for me when I was little. And it's called La Corona and the Tin Frog. It's just an absolutely beautiful book. And it was actually printed in 1979. So this book is just a couple years older than me, about 3 years older than me. So it is probably close to 43 years old since I turned 40 this year. And this book is one of those books that absolutely shaped who I am. And it's a little bit of a longer children's book, but I wanted to read it to you today. So if you can, this is a good one to go watch on YouTube because the illustrations in this book are incredible. So the book itself, La Corona and the Tin Frog, it was written by Russell Hoban and it was illustrated by Nicola Bailey. And gosh, it is just absolutely the coolest. And a little side note, last year I thought, oh gosh, I would love to interview Russell Hoban, who was the creator of this children's book. And he has passed away, so he's not alive anymore. And then I reached out to the illustrator. I tracked down the illustrator and I tracked her down through a publisher actually. And she did get back to me and I said, hey, you're an incredible illustrator. The pictures in this book, it shaped me. Would love to have you on my podcast. And she just felt really nervous and she said like she felt like a little bit of an imposter and that she didn't want to do it. And so I was so sad to hear that because gosh, I mean, her illustrations are just absolutely riveting. They're beautiful. And I know that as a child, they captured my imagination on so many levels. And I hope that this book, me reading it, will do the same for you. So without further ado, La Corona and the Tin Frog by Russell Hoban and Nicola Bailey. So this first, I'm just going to show the picture first here in the video. La Corona and the Tin Frog. La Corona was the name of the beautiful lady in the picture on the inside of the cigar box lid. She wore a scarlet robe and a golden crown. Beyond her was a calm blue bay on which a paddle wheel steamer floated. A locomotive trailed a faint plume of smoke across the pink and distant plain, past shadowy palms and pyramids. Far off in the printed sky sailed a balloon. But the lady never looked at any of those things. She sat among the wheels and anvils, sheaves of wheat, hammers, toppled pedestals, and garden urns, and she pointed to a globe that stood beside her while she looked steadfastly out past the left-hand side of the picture. And I'm just going to show you the pictures now. You can see her face looking out the left side of the picture. And then on the other side, you see the cigar box that we're going to be talking about. Inside the cigar box lived a tin frog, a seashell, a yellow cloth tape measure, and a magnifying glass. The tin frog was bright green and yellow with two perfectly round eyes that were like yellow and black bullseyes. He had cost 5 shillings when new and hopped when wound up. He had fallen in love with La Corona, and he was wound up all the time because of it. He kept trying to hop into the picture with her, but he only bumped his nose against it and fell back into the box. I love you, he told her, but she said nothing, didn't even look at him. For heaven's sake, said the tin frog, look at me, won't you? What do you expect to see out there behind the left-hand side of the picture? Perhaps a handsome prince, said La Corona. Maybe I'm a handsome prince, said the Tin Frog. You know, an enchanted one? Not likely, said La Corona. You're not even a very handsome frog. How do you know if you won't look? Said the Tin Frog. Again, he tried to hop into the picture, and again, he only bumped his nose and fell back. Oh, misery, he said. Oh, desperation. Pay close attention, said the magnifying glass. To what? Said the Tin Frog. Everything, said the magnifying glass. He leaned up against the picture, and the Tin Frog looked through him. When he looked very close, he saw that the picture was made of colored printed dots. Looking even closer, he saw the spaces between the dots. I'm just going to show the picture on the next page. It's this beautiful sea, and you can see that the Tin Frog and the tape measure are down in the sea, and you can see him looking through the magnifying glass. One doesn't always jump into a picture from the front, said the magnifying glass. Do it by the inch, said the tape measure. Be deep, said the seashell. The Tin Frog thought long and hard. He waited for the moment just between midnight and the 12 strokes of the clock. Everything was dark. The Tin Frog dropped the seashell over the side of the cigar box. He heard a splash. Very good, he said. He unrolled the tape measure over the side of the cigar box. Then he hopped and found himself in the ocean. Down, down, down. He followed the yellow tape measure in the green and glimmering midnight water. Through coral and sea fans and waving green seaweed, he swam. Past sunken wrecks and treasures and gliding monsters of the deep until the tape measure curved up again. Up and up went the Tin Frog toward the light, and he came out between the colored dots of the calm blue bay where the paddle wheel steamer floated. The dots closed up behind him, and he was in the picture with La Corona. I just want to show the pictures on the next pages here. Here I am, said the Tin Frog when he had swum ashore. I love you. You look quite different, said La Corona. You may not be an enchanted prince, but you are an enchanting frog. They were married soon after that. They took a sea voyage in the paddle wheel steamer. They drifted far and high across the blue sky in the wicker basket of the balloon. And often they traveled past shadowy palms and pyramids in the train pulled by the locomotive that trailed its faint plume of smoke across the pink and distant plain. When next the cigar box was opened, it was empty. In the picture on the lid, La Corona and the Tin Frog smiled at each other. And among the wheels and anvils, sheaves of wheat and hammers were the magnifying glass, the tape measure, and the seashell. Okay, on the next page, there's this beautiful picture. It's a new story, the Tin Horseman, and you can see the Tin Horseman on a mantle. The Tin Horseman. The weather castle was printed on a card that hung by the window. It stood on a rocky island in the middle of the bright blue sea, with banners flying from the tops of its tall towers. When the weather was fair, the rocky island was blue. When the rain threatened, the island turned purple, and when the rain fell, the island was pink. The Tin Horseman lived on a shelf near the window. He had a pale, heroic face. He wore a yellow fringed Indian suit and a headdress of red feathers. His dappled gray horse had a red saddled cloth. Horse and horseman were a single piece of tin stamped from a mold. They were printed on one side only. The other side was blank, but they were rounded and not flat, and they had feelings. And gosh, this is just such a beautiful illustration. I'm gonna just show this in the video. And what you can see is this beautiful picture of a castle. You can see cards and toys on this beautiful mantle. And it says, long ago, there had been a flat tin clown, a red painted magnet, and 2 or 3 colored rings with the horseman. Now he was alone. Day after day, he looked at the little windows of the weather castle, and he was certain that he had seen the face of a beautiful yellowed hair princess at one of them. One midnight, when the island is blue, I shall gallop there and find her, he said. But when the island was blue, he did not gallop to the castle because he was afraid. The Tin Horseman was afraid of the round, red and yellow glass-topped box that was the monkey game of skill. Inside it crouched the monkey, printed on a yellow background. He had a horrid pink face and empty holes where his eyes belonged. His eyes were silver balls that had to be shaken into place. I'm just going to show this next. On the next page, you can see a picture of the yellow-haired princess looking out a window in the castle. And then on the next page, you see the monkey game of skill where the eyes need to be rolled into the monkey. The Tin Horseman was afraid that when the monkey had his eyes in place, he might do dreadful things. And he was sure that the monkey was skillful enough to shake them into place whenever he wanted to. The monkey lived between the Tin Horseman and the castle, and the Tin Horseman never dared to gallop past. Day after day, he looked at the castle windows, and daily he became more certain that he saw the yellow-haired princess. Once he thought she even waved her hand to him. When the island is pink, I shall gallop there, he said. One rainy midnight, I shall smash the glass and throw away the monkey's silver eyes and ride to the princess. But he was afraid and stayed where he was, dusty on the shelf. One night, just between midnight and the 12 strokes of the clock, words came to the Tin Horseman, now or never. He didn't know whether he had heard them or thought them, but his fear left him, and in the dim light from the window, he spurred his horse toward the weather castle and the princess of his dreams. Just as he was passing the monkey game of skill, he was surrounded by complete darkness. All was black and he could see nothing. Again, words came to him. Fear is blind, but courage gives me eyes. And again, the Tin Horseman did not know where the words came from, nor why he did what he did next. He dismounted and felt in the dark for the monkey game of skill. He remembered his thought of smashing the glass and throwing away the eyes, but he did not do that. He shook it gently. 1, 2. He heard the eyes roll into place. He closed his eyes and waited. A golden glow came from the glass top of the box, and seeing the glow through his closed eyelids, he opened his eyes. The monkey was gone. There in the golden light stood the yellow-haired princess he had longed for. She was not in the weather castle, but there before him. And you can see in the picture, he is standing, kneeling before the monkey game of skill, the monkey gone, and the princess standing there glowing at him. And then on the next page, you see them. She's on his horse and they are galloping towards the castle. And then on the next page, you see the monkey game of skill back together again. But this time the monkey's gone, the glass is put back, and there's someone else in the monkey game of skill. And it says, "Your courage has broken my enchantment," she said. "There is a sorcerer who lives in the weather castle. It was he who wanted you to smash the glass and throw away the monkey's eyes. And if you had done that, I should have been lost to you forever." "Now I will ride to the castle," said the Tin Horseman. He pried the glass top off the box and took the princess up on his horse. Over the blue sea they galloped, straight to the island and up the great stone steps to the castle. The castle was empty. The sorcerer had fled. After that, the Tin Horseman and the princess lived in the weather castle with the banners flying from the towers, while the island turned blue or pink or purple as the weather changed. But the glass was back on the top of the red and yellow box that had been the monkey game of skill. From then on, someone else lived there, and no one ever looked to see who it might be. Okay, on the next page, it's a new story, The Night Watchman and the Crocodile. And on the next page, you see a beautiful night watchman. And then on the following page, you see a tin crocodile on an oriental rug. And it says, "The night watchman was made of wood. He wore a black coat, a top hat, and a red kerchief. And he carried a ladder and a long-handled candle snuffer. He was evidently the sort of night watchman who lit and snuffed out the candles in the street lamps and called out the hours in whatever time and place he had come from. His real job was burning incense. His whole hollow body was detachable from the base on which he stood. And when a cone of burning incense was placed on the base and his body put back on top of it, the fragrant smoke came out of his open mouth. He called out the hours as well. Of course, no one understood what he was saying. He was totally foreign in speech as well as in appearance, and the clock on the wall could not even recognize the names of the hours called out by the incense-burning wooden night watchman. The crocodile, tin and handsome, red and green and yellow, rolled on the little rubber wheels with a comfortable whirring sound, moving his green legs and opening and closing his splendidly toothed red mouth as he crossed the pattern of the oriental carpet. For years, he had said, and I'm going to turn the page here, he had said to himself that he was going to compose a poem for the literary quarterly, edited by the spinster mouse who lived behind the skirting board. "I'm definitely going to do it," he said. "It's just a matter of waiting for the right time. It's in me. I have the talent. I have the confidence." 10:30, said the night watchman in his own language. He had not understood a word of what the crocodile had said. "Something burns in me," he said. "What is it that burns in me?" No one had explained the incense and its heat and its fragrance to him. It was simply something that happened inside him from time to time. "Such a burning in me," said the night watchman. "Such a fragrance. I'm burning, burning, burning to say something." And you see this beautiful picture of the night watchman billowing incense from his mouth, and then the crocodile on the carpet talking to the hole in the baseboard where the mouse lives. On the next page, you see lots of jumbled words coming out of the night watchman's mouth and the crocodile with an open mouth. "Of course," said the crocodile, who in his turn understood nothing of what the night watchman said. "For your life is simple. You are secure with your ladder and your candle snuffer. You are not especially burning to say anything. Your fragrant smoke is enough for you. You have a working class outlook and you are happier because of it." "Burning to say something," shouted the night watchman. "It is in me, something to say." "You simply don't know how it is with literary people like me," the crocodile went on. "The waiting, waiting, waiting for that perfect time." The night watchman had burned more incense than usual that evening. He was giddy with the fragrance and the heat of it. Words danced in his head. In all the words of his own language, he found nothing to say. But as the hours passed, his mind became full of words of the language the crocodile spoke so flowingly. Unknown words danced in his head. 11 o'clock came, 11:30. Then it was midnight, and there was the tiny buzzing pause while the clock gathered itself to strike 12 times. "Now is the only time there is," shouted the night watchman. He shouted in the crocodile's language, in words he did not know the meaning of. "What's that?" said the startled crocodile as the clock finished its 12 strokes. The night watchman could not say it again. The words had vanished from his mind. His incense had burnt out, but the crocodile had heard him well enough. "Is it said the crocodile, "is now the only time there is?" He ran back and forth upon the oriental carpet, whirring excitedly. Without further delay, he composed a strong poem, went quickly to the hole in the skirting board, and recited it to the spinster mouse. "This is very good indeed," she said. "We'll run it in the next issue. I never thought you'd do it." "That night watchman is extraordinary," said the crocodile. He ran back across the carpet and stopped in front of the night watchman. "Tell me more," he said. "I feel that I have much to learn from you." But the night watchman's incense was burnt out. He had forgotten what he had said, and he had never understood the words to begin with. In the evenings that followed, he never got hot enough to speak that language again. The crocodile, however, remembered his words. He went on making poems, and in time there were enough of them to fill a book, which was published by the mouse. And you can see this really cute picture of the mouse publishing the book. And then on the next page, there is another story, and you see the face of the clock, and then you see the room where all of these stories happen. And this next story is the clock. The clock, ticking and talking, swinging his pendulum behind the glass front of his case and striking the hours day and night, thought long about the things that had happened in the room. He had seen the Tin Frog find a way into the picture with La Corona. He had seen the Tin Horseman break the enchantment of the yellow-haired princess. He had heard the night watchman cry out in words that made the tin crocodile compose poetry. The clock noticed that the crucial moment was always just after his hands touched midnight and just before he sounded his 12 strokes. He thought about it more and more. He began to feel left out because he himself could never do anything in that in-between moment except go on keeping time. Of course, he said to himself, keeping time is very important. I'm sure it's more important than anything those others have done. He went on ticking and talking and striking the hours. All the same, he said to himself, sometimes I wonder whether I keep time or time keeps me. In a way, I'm really no better than a prisoner on a treadmill, walking day and night, my tick-tock wheel. The clock was wound once a week. As the time for each new winding approached, he could feel his mainspring losing power. He determined to stop his pendulum, if he could, just at the moment when his hands touched midnight and before he struck the 12 strokes. On the night before the morning when he was to be wound again, he felt the loosening of his mainspring, felt how little force there was in the swinging pendulum and in the tick-tock wheel that kept him walking. 10 o'clock came, 10:30, 11 o'clock, 11:30. His hands touched 12, and gathering all his strength, the clock exerted his will upon the pendulum. The pendulum stopped. The clock had not struck. The two little brass legs of his escapement stopped walking. Anything can happen, said the clock. Leaving the rest of his work behind, he slipped out of his case, just the two little walking brass legs of him, and walked down the wall. In the picture inside the cigar box lid, La Corona and the Tin Frog listened for the 12 strokes of midnight, but heard nothing. The colored dots of the picture moved further and further apart. Hold me tight, said La Corona to the Tin Frog. I am only colored dots like the rest of the picture. No, said the Tin Frog. You are no longer only a picture. You are my beloved. He held her tight, and she stayed together as they dropped out of the lid to the cigar box, and the magnifying glass, the seashell, and the tape measure fell with them. They climbed out of the cigar box, down from the shelf, and stood in the moonlight on the oriental carpet. On the wall, the dim hands of the clock stood motionless at midnight. And in the picture, you can see the inner workings of the clock, and you can see the Tin Frog helping La Corona out of the cigar box. And then on the next page, you can see a windowsill that has everyone that the story has been talking about. And it says, on the rocky island, on the card by the window, the weather castle vanished. And the Tin Horseman and his princess galloped over the blue sea as it disappeared, then leaped down to the carpet with the others. The incense-burning night watchman found that he could speak the language of the others. Now is the only time there is, was the first thing he said. The tin crocodile, who had been reading proofs, said, I haven't even begun to make poems yet. The spinster mouse editor shot out of the hole in the skirting board and said, quarterly is not enough. Who's keeping time now? Said the magnifying glass. Time can't be kept, said the brass legs of the clock's escapement. And time can't keep you. Across the oriental carpet, he marched in the moonlight up the wall and stood on the sill of the open window. As he marched, he sang, ting, tang, tangarang. Everyone followed him across the carpet and up to the windowsill. Where will our next castle be, I wonder, said the yellow-haired princess to the Tin Horseman. What do you suppose the new picture will be, said La Corona to the Tin Frog. Now, said the incense-burning night watchman. Deep, said the seashell. Thousands and thousands of leagues by the inch, said the tape measure. Pay close attention, said the magnifying glass. It's all before us, said the crocodile. Every day, said the spinster mouse editor. And then you see a little picture, and it's the windowsill cracked just enough, and everyone's left. You see the tape measure just kind of still there a little tiny bit, and there's someone looking out the window, and it's that same someone that had been in the monkey game of skill after the monkey disappeared. Ting, tang, tangarang, sang the marching brass legs of the clock's escapement, and they all followed him out through the window and into the moonlight. Last of all was whoever lived in the red and yellow glass top box that had been the monkey game of skill. They'll want me too, he said. Everyone can't be nice. And it's the sorcerer that put the yellow-haired princess trapped her in the castle. And that is La Corona and the Tin Frog. And I just want you to remember with the end of this, now is the only time there is. Have an awesome day.